Okay. All right. So let's get started. Today's conversation circle for the, we're actually calling it a community conversation for the FirstGen group. So thank you all for being here today. We're expecting a few more people to pop on. Before I get going, and I know we had a little conversation exchange beforehand, but just to remind you that because this is recorded and is an extension of our selected work together, we refrain from talking about pricing, of course. I would ask that if you are available to have your video on, which most of you have so far, that you do so. If you have questions, please feel free to write them in the chat. We'll be moderating this and monitoring what those questions are. It's a small group, so, you know, it's pretty informal. We have an idea of what we'd like to accomplish on this call, but just to let you know that it's a chance to share ideas and have discussions. So this is our first conversation for 2021, and we are excited to share that we have now 54 firms out of the selected membership that are designated as first generation owners. So that's exciting. And in addition, I shared this in a previous message that we now have in 2021, we added 8 new members just in this year alone that are in this community. So obviously it's growing and we're excited about that. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the conversation over to Tiffany, our moderator for today's call. And Tiffany is with Luze Reck Funeral Home in South Dakota. They've been members since 2012. Tiffany's been active in a lot of different selected meetings and programs, and just want to say thank you for moderating today, and I'm going to hand it off to you.
Very good. Thank you, Patty. Hello, everyone. Some faces I know and some I don't, so it's a great way to connect today. But welcome to this FirstGen Community conversation. I am pleased to facilitate this session today, and I look forward to our discussion. Our last discussion, which unfortunately I was not able to be on, but was in October of 2020, and watching a little bit, there was some pretty interesting topics and time spent together as a group. So today's focus is really about reconnecting and coming together. We'll have some dialogue and we'll touch base on things that this call discuss, interests and desires of the future of this community. As Patty shared, this is the FirstGen Community group, and it really is growing. I think it's great to hear that there's 54 members and 8 new ones thus far in 2021. So I think, although some of us know each other, but not all of us, I think this would be a really great time for each of us to just have a chance to introduce ourselves, including like what location or where we're from in the country, and then maybe how many years you've been a FirstGen owner. So yeah, let's start with that. So Bob, I'm going to pick on you because I know you so well. Why don't you just start it out with us, for us?
I miss you, Tiff. I've been in funeral service for just over 40 years, on and off. Started in high school, went in the military, was a grave registration specialist there, came back out, got back into the funeral service, went to the post office, came back. I knew Tiffany and Robert from the academy. Kevin, I was in with a study group for a while when I was at a funeral home. Denise, I met you a long time ago through that as well. Being a part of Selected before is what brought me back here. I purchased a funeral home almost 2 years ago now, and Robert and I have been in communication over the years, and we talked, and then had a few other people that invited me in, and I was more than happy to get back into it. Knowing Tiff, Robert, Kevin, a bunch of the crew that we were with the academy was just a major influence on a lot of what I look for. I love this place, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. Robert, why don't you go next?
Okay, Robert Nunnally. I live in Central North Carolina. have been in funeral service since I got out of high school, and didn't know what I wanted to do, but landed a job at a funeral home, and here I am 35 years later. So I have been at the firm that I'm with now since 1990, and was hired by an older gentleman when I came here. He was looking for a successor, and it worked out where I was able to take over the ownership of the funeral home. But if I'd have known at that time that I would wait 28 years for it, I probably would have never taken the job. So 28 years later, when he passed away, we had an agreement in place as to how the ownership would transfer. And so I've been an owner for almost 4 years, and we have 3 small funeral homes here in our county. And about 2 years ago, we bought a perpetual care cemetery in our county, and we're in the process of building a funeral home on that property to take the place of one that we have. So we're not adding a new funeral home, we're replacing one that we have now with a new location. So anyway, that's where we are. And again, I think Selected has helped me in so many different ways, by the academy, management summits, annual meetings, just the networking and connecting with people all across the country that we can share ideas and thoughts with. So I love Selected. Thank you.
Any takers? Who's next? How about you, Kevin?
Okay, I will do. Thank you. So I've been in funeral service for about 30 years, and I went to Ball State. I'm from Central Indiana. Went to Ball State, majored in accounting, and decided I didn't want to be an accountant. So I went to mortuary school in Cincinnati and came back to my hometown. And in 1995, we built a new facility, new business, new from square one. I was 26 years old, and I had a business partner, and when we opened. And 2 years later, we were invited into Selected, and love Selected, been a member since 1997. And so about 16 years ago, the business partner sold his portion to me. So I am first generation and been the sole owner since about 2004, I think it is, or 6 or whatever. Do the math, however that comes up. So I've been in a study group for several years. Love a study group, as Bob said, met him there. I think I've met about all the participants, but I really, really was excited when I learned that there was going to be a FirstGen group, because many times during Selected meetings, I kind of felt like some of the things, the challenges that a lot of the members, especially in the study group, were having, I couldn't relate to. I can't relate to parents or grandparents in the business and the problems and the challenge and, the successes they have with that. So some of the challenge I had, many of the challenges I had, they couldn't relate to. So I was very excited about a FirstGen group, because I really feel like I could relate to a lot of the Nashville, I think, is when the first meeting was. That was 2 years ago, I believe, at the annual, and I had a death, staff member, so I had to leave very quickly. So I did not attend that first meeting in Nashville. I planned on it, but couldn't do that. So glad to be a part of this group. I'm on the trust board at this point, and participate in a lot of meetings, plan on being in San Antonio. So love Selected, love funeral service, and that's who I am. So thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. How about Adam?
Hey there, everyone. My name is Adam Walker. I'm in Portland, Maine. I've been a first generation owner for going on 7 years now. I've been in the profession going on 20 years, but I bought a funeral home about 7 years ago that was a member of Selected. The funeral home never really, the former owner never really took advantage of the membership with Selected. It was inherited when he bought the funeral home too, so he just kind of maintained it, paid the dues, but didn't really take advantage of some of the benefits. And after I bought the funeral home, of course, all of you are first generation owners. You need to look for areas where you can increase the bottom line, whether that's increasing revenues or dropping expenses. and I was thinking about dropping my membership with Selected, and Mark Higgins was one of them that talked me into not doing that. And I'm so grateful that Mark talked me into staying with Selected, because the experience has been tremendous so far. It's been such an positively impactful aspect to our business. And recently, last year, we bought 2 more funeral homes. So I'm implementing some of the wonderful things I've learned through Selected in those businesses, and we're already seeing some positive improvements there too. Like a couple of you, I'm part of a study group, the Trendsetters. None of them are FirstGen owners, but again, a great group of people to bounce ideas off of and learn from. And you know, it's been my hope. It's always been difficult, but as a FirstGen owner, it's been my hope to be able to contribute a little bit more to Selected too. And I'm grateful that we have this opportunity to work together as FirstGen owners, so that way we can hopefully, you know, return some of the favors that we've learned from Selected. But it's great to be here, and thank you all for having me here.
Thanks, Adam. Sean.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So I've been in the funeral business since '89, right out of high school. Worked for SCI for about 15 years, 16 years, and was blessed to be in a position to buy a funeral home. So my wife and I did in '05, and was invited to join Selected in 2014. And it's been amazing. Great, you know, learning, meeting people. But I, like Kevin, kind of found out real quick at a couple of Selected meetings that when you're talking to someone that's, you know, running a 145-year-old business and they're 3rd or 4th generation, they don't really have the same problems you have, nor the same successes. So being able to talk to people that had similar, kind of a similar walk that I was walking, was kind of the impetus behind, I think Denise and I had talked about something like this, and you know, putting together similar minds. They Selected started the cemetery, the combo group, and that was kind of the idea. Like, hey, well, we could do that, you know. So here we are. So I'm glad to be a part of it. Selected has done amazing things for our business, as far as the knowledge and the shared resources and education and all the stuff that you have access to. Not to mention that most of the best funeral homes in any particular town are part of Selected. So, so just happy to be part of this group, part of Selected, and part of this meeting, and hope to see all of y'all in person in San Antonio.
Thanks, Sean. Tress. Oh, you're muted.
Trace Hewell from Seguin, Texas. We're outside of San Antonio. I built this funeral home in 2007, so we're going on 14 years in October of our anniversary, and we've grown steadily every year. And I have some great mentors in the Porter Loin group in San Antonio, which is where I worked before. So they taught me so much, and I've tried to carry it on here through my business, and some of their ideas, and they just knew so much, and it's really helped, and it's shown. And I'm sure, like everybody else, we've been overwhelmed this year in volume, and so I'm still playing catch up, as you can probably see from my desk in the background. But it's great to be here. I'm sorry I'm late, but I do hope to see y'all in San Antonio. So it's a great city if you've never been, lots of good food. And I just look forward to gathering again. We had our first family gathering over Memorial Day weekend, and it was great to be with my family. So we just hadn't seen each other and connected. And I think that's been missing in our funerals this year. And I think people are ready to gather again, to come and be at funerals. And I've noticed here in Texas, we're very open. And so we've opened our chapel back almost 100%. So we had 600 people at a funeral the other day for a prominent person. And it was really good to see all the people that I hadn't seen in a long time. So I guess you call it a new normal, but it's good to be doing what we do best again.
For sure, for sure. Thanks for sharing. We have Kirk Malowski. I knew I'm going to butcher that. From Bemidji, Minnesota. He's on the call, but he has no camera or audio. I don't know if that's old-fashioned, Kirk, but I maybe call it brilliant so too. But Bemidji, Minnesota, where he has his funeral home, was the first city on the Mississippi. He has owned Olson Schwartz Funeral Home since October of 2006, and his firm has been a member of Selected since 1967. So great to have you on the call, Kirk. Those from Selected, do you just want to briefly say who you are and what your job title is, or do we just want to skim over you? Whatever you guys want.
Well, I think I think most of us know one another, but just
Okay.
real quickly, Denise, do you want to start real quickly and say your role and go from there?
Know your role and shut your mouth. Is that
Yeah,
what we're
exactly.
saying?
Quick and
Patty said it.
That's it. Denise Sofel, really glad to see everyone. As Sean mentioned, we kicked this venture off a while back, and now Patty's going to kind of be spearheading it. Really, at this point, we're just so pleased that we are moving this FirstGen group along, and look forward to continuing finding proactive ways to meet your needs and to make sure that we're bringing that collective intelligence together. So glad to be here, and looking forward to hearing what's going on in all of your worlds these days and how we can help. Thank you.
thanks, Denise. And then we have Pam from our offices. Pam, you want to just say hi?
Sure. Hi, I'm Pam Buttonchin. I'm in membership with Daniel and Patty. Most of you probably know me from getting the ballot emails when we have prospective members, or if you need your password reset or have additional staff to add, I would be the person to contact.
Then we have Daniel Hugg, our membership development director.
Hi, everyone. Daniel Hugg, as Patty mentioned. Pam shared that we have that she's in charge of the balloting process, and hopefully we'll have a couple more for you very soon, fingers crossed. But it's great to be a part of this today. Thank you so much, Patty, for having me aboard. And I just love to hear the stories from our members who are first generation, where you got your start, how you ended up in the business that you're in. And it's just so great for me to learn all that. So I'm excited for today. Thank you for having me as a part of the group. And I think we'll get started then, right, Patty?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Let's just rock and roll. So today on this call, we have Matt Drimmelen, right? I'm going to kill all last names, just FYI. So
Van Drimmelen. You just call
there
me
you
Matt.
go, Drimmelen. But he is from Full Circle Aftercare. He's going to share a few words about himself and his company and observations that he has seen working with his clients, specifically in this last year and then post-COVID, and what he sees as future trends. And so for right now, I'd just like to give the mic to Matt, and he can fill us in on some stuff. So thank you for being on the call, and thank you for being a partner with us in this FirstGen program.
Thanks, Tiffany. We're honored to be part of Selected. A couple years ago, one of our firms said you should really look into being part of Selected, and you're right. Selected firms are the ones that we want to work with in every city, and so it made perfect sense for us to do that. We're an aftercare company. Aftercare can mean so many things in the funeral industry, but what we specifically focus on is families that need help in closing out everything from Social Security to cell phone bills to credit cards, things like that. And we go in and help them with that, and white label our service under the funeral home, try to build your pre-need and your at-need and differentiate your funeral home as well. And, I think this topic today, just as we're post-COVID and dealing with all the changes, I thought that one thing that's interesting for us is we have a board of our funeral homes, both current and other funeral homes that are not part of our service, that we meet every couple months and discuss problems. And one of the things that was brought up in a meeting a few weeks ago was a lot of funeral homeowners are concerned that the trend in the United States has been to not have as many services. You know, less and less people want services. And with COVID, as services were not able to happen, you know, a lot of families said, well, we'll just do it after COVID, and now they're not coming back and doing those. And they're worried that that will accelerate the trend of not doing traditional services or services with cremation. And as we discussed that, a lot of our funeral homes were saying, I think that's why it's important for us to make sure that we're not only educating families on the importance of services, but also listening to families on what their needs are and providing products and services that meet their needs. You know, Full Circle Aftercare tries to do that for families, meet their needs and helping them close those accounts. But everything that you guys do right now is meeting those needs. And so I think it's an important trend to follow, and we'll see how it turns out long term. But I'm excited to listen to everyone's ideas today, and I think we have a lot of topics to cover, and we are just excited to be here. So thank you so much. You're muted, Tiffany. Sorry.
Yep. See, I already messed up. So, so thanks again, Matt, and Full Service Aftercare for your support. And so I think now's the time that we kick off discussion, but maybe just a little bit to build off of what Matt was saying. And we've all come out of a year that definitely was not normal in a multitude of different ways. And so what are you guys seeing as far as COVID and the impact of moving forward? You know, are your families that have passed away during COVID, did they just have private services at the time and nothing afterwards? Or what are you guys seeing, or anything else related to that? So don't be afraid to share. I can say just real briefly that out of our, we have 4 rooftops, and I think, I don't know how many, we had the largest year we ever had for call numbers, but we still had, you know, we offered private services right away, which almost everyone had a private service. And then we offered, you know, to have a follow-up service afterwards. And I would say, without running the numbers, maybe 10% of those families chose to have another service afterwards. And so a lot of ours have not chosen to have another service, but they had something even at the height of COVID, even if it was private. Well, it was just private with just, you know, family and immediate friends and stuff. South Dakota is a little different. We didn't have any restrictions or regulations. We're a wide open state. That's all I'll say. So, you know, we didn't battle with our governor restricting us on stuff, but we as a funeral home more did. But we are not seeing a lot of families want services afterwards. So I'm just curious, you know, and piggybacking off Matt too, what are you guys seeing?
Tiff, out here, and I didn't mention before, but our firms are just south of Detroit. We were very governed during this COVID period. When COVID hit, we went down to 10-person visitation. We increased to a 25. June 1st of this year, we are able to have 50% of our capacity. And supposedly, July 1st, we're going back to full unrestricted. I don't count on that because they've changed it so many times. Many of our services last year, we had a lot of direct cremations. We had record years. We found that a lot of people had said we're going to do services. If they did them, it wasn't at a church or at a funeral home. So I'm tending to believe that they just haven't done it. Our numbers are a little lower than they were last year, dollar wise, we're above. So our trend is starting to pick up, getting back more to the traditional, which is a good sign. We had our first 50% funeral the other day, and without a doubt, we hit 50% or more. We were at capacity of what we were supposed to have. So people are anxious. I see a lot. I think, people were going for that direct cremation as an out during COVID. I think that some of this, we all look at this as that's going to be the new norm. I kind of look at it a little bit different and approach it different, that people learned even more so what it's like to not have a tribute to your loved one. And I think a lot of people miss it. During this last couple months, I mean, they're pushing limits, wanting to get in here, wanting to get places, trying to find out where they can hold, open things. We can't have luncheons. We haven't had a luncheon since COVID hit. Our state is just totally restricted, but I think that this is going to be a great opportunity for everybody to show that value of that funeral. And I think people are already seeing it.
Thanks, Bob.
I think what we saw here, of course, I think Arizona is probably different than most of you, where our cremation rate's about 82% of our business, 82 to 84 is already selecting cremation. So we didn't really see an increase, quote unquote, in direct cremations. We just saw an increase in volume. But the one thing that we've noticed, what's happened here is, I don't think so much, it wasn't the families that started choosing direct disposal or immediate cremation or whatever you want to call it. It was the funeral homes. And I will classify them as, just for the context of this conversation, good and bad, because in bad situations, they were refusing service and refusing to help families that wanted to see their loved one again, or we're not talking about 100 people. We're talking about the immediate family, or the wife wanting to say bye to her husband, those types of things. And the funeral homes in town that were still open and still willing to have two people come into a visitation room and say bye, those funeral homes have greatly increased business. As an example, our case volume on average is about 13 calls higher than it was before July. COVID really hit Phoenix in July. So we're running 13 calls higher than we were previously. And I think that's an offshoot of just, being able to help those families, and now word of mouth. That's what we've seen is, and that happens. Hanson and Messenger, those are selected firms here in town. Bunkers, those are all selected firms, and they've all experienced that same growth. Whereas the cremation providers that were in town, or that are in town, they went from providing minimal services to doing no service. They didn't do anything. They were even at one point charging families a premium if they wanted to come into the funeral home and fill out their paperwork. If they would not do it online, they had an additional fee. So that's what we've seen is and I expect to see that increase in the future.
Anyone else have something to offer in regards to COVID? Otherwise, I'll just shoot out another question. I don't want to cut anyone off.
I would just like to say, same as Sean just said, we had competitors who were refusing to embalm COVID cases. And it kind of blows my mind, but we're in a very low cremation. We're about 30% cremation area. And so when you have 70% of people who want an embalming and competitors refusing to embalm a COVID case, it's just unbelievable to us. And so obviously it increased our numbers quickly. And we continue to do everything as traditional as possible. We were limited to number of people in the building at times. And in April of last year, even got down to 10 people, which was tough because we had a traditional funeral for a lady who had 8 children. And so you have 8 children and 2 of those get to invite their spouse or companion. So, but we got through that. We had outdoor visitations like a lot of you did, drive through, etc. But I think the ones that tried to continue as usual, as normal as possible, is the ones that will come out of this doing okay.
Yeah, I think one, I always like to step back and say, what can we learn and what benefits do we get from COVID in reference of, I think it forced all of us to think outside the box, which is a good thing to do because doing the same thing that we always do doesn't always give us the growth that we need. And so the outdoor visitations and funerals and drive-through, I mean, I think we can step back and say, those were some good things that came from COVID, and some of those things that I think we can still carry forward. And so that's kind of how I try to look at the COVID era. So, but, I think something like when we first bought our funeral homes, which my sister and I own our funeral homes together, and we're in our 15th year of ownership, and it's not as bad as it was in the early years, but what are some things that keep you guys up at night? That besides waiting for the phone to ring, what keeps you from getting a good solid sleep, and what makes you worry as first generation funeral home owners?
I can jump in on that.
Thanks, Robert.
I worry about our ever-changing industry and just what we've talked a little bit about with rising cremation rates. When I came here 31 years ago, we did 1 cremation all year long, and now it's about 40% of our business. So trying to show families the value of having services has been a challenge, but I've seen a greater challenge in trying to meet the needs of the families because there's so much diversity within families, and there seems to be so much mental instability with families that sometimes we get caught in the middle, and we want to offer good service, but we're a virtual society now, and so when you don't do something right, it can really haunt you. So I think to me those are the things that maybe keep me up at night, is how can we as a funeral home staff be on the same page, treat the families the same, offer the same service, and also build a company that will draw people to us to want to work for us. And those are some things that we've actually been working on the last year, is kind of a strategic framework for our company. And, this is what defines us, this is what we stand for, and people they can come to us and we'll serve them, but they can also come to work for us if they want to work for a company that does these things. So, but anyway, I just think that there are just so many things out there that are working against us now. But there will always be death, and there will always be death care, and we are the ones that have to define how it's going to be handled in the future.
I lay awake worrying about my staffing, especially this last year. Never knew if somebody might be sick, and several of my staff, and we're small, we're about 12 employees, got COVID. And so I always worry about them and keeping everything staffed. Also this year, unique to us down here in South Texas, we ran out of electricity. I'm sure y'all heard of that. We had this horrific snowstorm. And so I'm worried this summer. I'm laying awake wondering, okay, if we get a week of 105-degree weather, which we're used to down here, are they going to start turning our electric, doing brownouts every 45 minutes?
Maybe they turned the electricity off on them.
Yeah.
All right, if he comes back on, we will continue with Tress. So,
would-
you know, one
I
thing
would-
I want to just briefly, you know, and maybe expand on is, you know, first generation support systems. You know, I know when my sister Mandy and I we had a pretty tragic incident of, you know, kind of how we got into ownership. Our previous boss had passed away and had no will, with multiple funeral homes and multiple children from multiple wives. So it just is, I don't know if there's another story out there like ours. But, you know, the thing that we really struggled with, and I really struggled with, was the support system that we had when we were buying our funeral homes. You know, South Dakota is a very rural state, and although we belong to the state association, I didn't really get anyone reaching out like other colleagues, hey, you know, how can we help you? It was more, how am I going to buy these funeral homes and you're going to work for me kind of deal. So it wasn't really until I met John Horan at Meet the Mentors back in 11 or something, I think 2011, where I even heard of Selected, and then from there, you know, had interest and became a member, and people like John Horan and Lisa Bowie. And then the first thing I did was jumped into Leadership Academy, and then went to a study group that I still belong to, the Wendy G's. So it wasn't really until Selected came about did I feel like I had this ginormous support system, and I could reach out to many different people and I didn't grow up in funeral service. I think I had gone to maybe 1 or 2 family funerals before I really chose to take it on as a major in college and it be a part of my calling in life. And so how have you guys found your support systems being in as first generation funeral home directors?
I would also agree to you, Tiffany, that Selected, the people I've met and Selected, and obviously coming around to where this group came from, I didn't have any support. You know, I mean, of course, working.
And I think we lost Sean too.
Better watch it. Brownouts are coming around everywhere.
Yep, we lost him. So how about, you know, anyone else? You know, what has anyone else's experiences been?
You know, Tiffany, I had a similar experience like you, not in the sense of how I came into the ownership, but how when I'm not originally from the community that I serve. So it was a little bit difficult for me being an outsider, and none of our other colleagues in this community stepped up to say, hey, how can I help you? It was more so, how can we take advantage of this guy who's not from around here, who has no community roots. And that's, again, just like you, that's where I found so much value in Selected, because I didn't have the relationships in this community to be able to say, hey, what do we do in a situation like this?
Mm-hmm.
But I did have that group in Selected, the study group especially, to be able to go back and say, hey, this is my situation. What are some of your recommendations? What have you done in similar circumstances?
Yeah.
So I think that's just a normal thing anytime. So funeral professionals in general, I feel that the majority of funeral professionals will do anything they can to help somebody else, unless that somebody else is a competitor, unfortunately. You know, and I think that a lot of first generation funeral professionals present concern to colleagues in the area or competitors, because it's not the same old. It's not the child of the owner who's going to continue to operate things the same way. It's going to the first gen owner is going to be sort of a disruptor in that community and really freshen up funeral service. They have that passion, so they're going to really give their all to that community at first. So that's why I feel a lot of colleagues probably aren't as supportive. But that was just my experience anyway. Again, like I said, similar to yours, Tiffany.
Thanks for sharing, Adam.
That's a great observation, Adam. I disappeared and came back. But Adam's right. That first generation enthusiasm, I guess, that may exist scares other funeral people. And you're right. We're not a member. We are a member of the Arizona Association, but we don't participate because all they want to do, it seems like, is know how can I get one up on you, and how can we do things better than you, or what are you doing to be good? Whereas selected firms lift each other up because we're not in competition. We are in most markets serving the same group of people, and the same type of clientele, if you will, and if wants to steal my ideas, but I don't mind sharing my ideas with y'all because that's what I'm in it for the same thing. So
Yeah.
I agree with both of these guys with, some of the past employment that I've had at funeral homes. They're, third, fourth, fifth generation people. And, I've never seen them put on a pair of blue jeans, get out and sweep the sidewalk, paint. Just, they think that they'll sit behind a desk and just, well, business is going to come because their name is there. I found a lot, just by getting out and, taking care of your place, doing little things, people are going to stop and talk to you, and the more you become active that way, showing that you're no different than the person that lives down the street. People want to come to some place like that. They don't want to necessarily go to the place that, somebody they're never seen except at some high rent event. They want to see that you're part of that community. And, I believe that FirstGen, you get out there and you interact and you do things, they're going to pay attention. And I agree with you guys with the fact that, to be honest with you, first generation's a threat to the multi-generations.
I don't know that it has as much to do with. There was a presentation in a selected meeting 3 years ago from Denise or Patty. Maybe y'all can help me. The organization that's in New Mexico that works with French, and they gave a presentation a couple of years ago, and basically it's you need to reinvent yourself. You get to a point to where you become commoditized, or you start a downward trend. And if you don't reinvent yourself or reinvigorate yourself, which new ownership obviously does, if you don't do that, then you tend to trend down. And I think, that's when you have a disruptor like Amazon in that industry. They're brand new. Everybody loves Amazon, but there will come a time where everybody hates Amazon because they've been around and they're no longer relevant because they're the old people. And some new group will start and they'll think they're the best thing since sliced bread, and everybody will move to that. I mean, look at what Facebook did to MySpace. That's where we want to take that and keep reinvigorating and renewing our brand and our quality and our standards.
So can I ask a question based on that,
Yeah.
Sean? And anyone else who wants to chime in? I'm just curious, do you actually proactively in your messaging and in your branding, do you come out and say, you're a first generation owner, however you want to message that? Do you leverage that, I guess, is the question I'm curious to hear about.
I would say in our market, I do not. However, we're in just small enough towns, both of our locations. I think everyone knows that because our competitors are multi-generational, kind of sleepy, kind of not keeping their place up, and so the drive isn't there. But I guess I have not needed to, because in the small community, they're aware of that.
Yeah, we've marketed the fact that we are the owners. Our funeral home had been here since 1957. We are the 5th owners, but the 4th owner was a company. So the first 3 owners were individuals here locally. The fourth owner was a company. They kind of did a bad job, thus being for sale. And so for us to be able to take it back under local ownership was something we marketed and branded and still do. That. So not so much first generation owners, but more so it's back to local ownership.
Denise, I like your point there. Something I've never thought of is marketing as a first generation, because like Sean, our funeral homes were 100-year-old businesses, and the names were established a long time ago. So we didn't do a name change. I don't have my name on the sign, but I've been here 30 years. But I'm technically a first generation funeral director because I don't have any other family in funeral service. But to go in and advertise, first generation, I think may be a little challenging. Now, if I went into a community, I think Adam came in from another town, started my own place, it might be beneficial to advertise that as a way to have people come in and maybe try something new.
Yeah, that's a great question, Denise. I never even thought about that at all. So I don't really have any insight other than I'm going to chew on that for a while. So
my thought as a marketing person, just weighing in on this, is that a lot of this and how you would position that would depend on your market and, who is your competition and what is the perception of the multi-generation. I know people tout that, right? I mean, our multi-generational firms tout that 6th generation, and that sounds great. But that for some, the newer and, the millennial customer, client, family, that might not be a good thing. It might just be old and stodgy rather than fresh and new. So it's a great question, Denise. I've never really thought of that. And I think it's great to plant that seed and see if that can work to your benefit. So nice question. I like this discussion. It's great.
Well, I would also say, and this is just a blanket statement that I have said on every single call. So if you go back and look at recordings, you'll be like, she said that again. Obviously, with this opportunity, we are re-entering, right? We have an ability to reimagine now. The game has shifted a bit. So, I think it behooves each and every one of us, not only personally, to take some reflection and step back post-COVID and as we transition or re-enter, as they're referring to it, but also as your business. You have an opportunity really to take your learnings that you had and perhaps reimagine or remessage or reconnect with your market in a different way as a result of that. So I would just encourage everybody as you're, you have your think tank time, if you will, to kind of kick that around perhaps with your trusted staff to see how you can best leverage that, because I think that is very, very powerful. I can tell you in my little town of Lakemore, Illinois, we have funeral homes a stone throw, and a recent selected member that has joined us as well. But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of folks kind of changing up their outreach a little bit to the community here and repositioning things and coming at it as a more we're all in this together approach, not just you come and see us when you need us. We're together. So just some food for thought, and thank you for the share, because it's an interesting time and a lot of time for opportunities. So,
Tiffany, can I add something to that? Who's using selected independent funeral homes in their marketing, and to what extent are you using it? Because that definitely sets us apart from our competition in our communities. So, are you using it, and is it benefiting you, or do you see how it is?
we're using it, but to be very frank, on a very small scale, more so on social media. When we're looking for content, we'll put out there that we're a member of Selected Independent Funeral Homes, and that means nothing to the average person. Nobody knows who the hell Selected Independent is, but we talk about how Selected only allows the best of the best in the country in best of the best in our profession to join, and that helps set us apart in the sense that we're able to brag a bit that in our community we're the only ones that have been invited to join this organization.
Yeah. We've noticed the same thing, where it doesn't really, we've used the logo and the facts that we're proud members or invited members to be in this group. That doesn't seem to have an impact in advertising, but it has a big impact in decision making for like a family that's on the phone or a family that walks in the door. To hand them our pledge to you, to have that, to give them, we have that on the tables when they come in, and the plaque on the wall, and to explain, our code of practice and everything that Selected stands for. Like Adam said, they don't really know, nobody knows what Selected Independent is, but when you explain that, that the good funeral homes in our town, for example, they just had a best of the desert vote in the Phoenix paper, and split it into 3 parts of the valley, and Hanson, Messenger, and us won the 3 best funeral home in the valley in our respective category. All 3 of those are Selected firms, and so that's when it doesn't mean anything in ad, but decision time, it makes a big difference.
One thing we did is we all wear a Selected lapel pin when we have funerals, and then we asked Patty to talk to our entire staff to share with our staff what is Selected, and she did a really good probably 1-hour presentation and did questions and answers, so that when somebody asks a staff member, a part-time guy, whatever, what's that lapel pin, they can tell them proudly that we're part of Selected, and they are too.
Perfect. Those are all a lot of great ideas and stuff, but we're approaching 2:00, and to just keep within all of our time constraints and to be respectful of everyone's time. We're going to kind of wrap this discussion up a little bit, but before we do that, I think the only way that we can improve and move forward is getting a little feedback from each of you, and what you're looking for in this group, and what's important to you. So here, real briefly, Patty's gonna pop up 6 questions for you guys to answer. It won't take that much time, so if you'll answer those, and this will help gauge the interest of moving forward and how to direct our future discussion. So if you can take a moment and do that, that would be awesome.
Can everyone see all the questions as they're appearing or not? Can everyone see the questions? Yeah, okay, thank you.
some of these you can't select more than one.
Right, some are only one, some are.
Number 3 says select all that apply, and it won't let you do any more than one.
Oh,
Yeah. No, number 3 wouldn't. Yeah, that was the only one I noticed.
okay. I'm sorry, that's not good. All right, so at least we can get the top ones then, right? All right. Okay,
Yeah,
so
while
I-
everyone's going through this, I just wanted to take a moment to ask everyone to admire my nice water bottle that I received
Nice.
from Matthew. It keeps my water nice and cold on a hot Maine day like this. It's about 90 degrees outside, which is nothing compared to what it's like in Texas or Arizona. But 90 degrees is hot in Maine. So thank you, Matthew, for the water bottle.
You're welcome. Your check's in the mail for that shameless plug. I appreciate it.
All you did, Adam, is say, all I have is this nice selected coffee mug, but I don't have any aftercare stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send
Maybe I need to sign up. Although I will like to say this little coffee thing that Selected sent out or Federated did, not to give any shout outs other than to Selected, I use it every day. I love it. I love it.
Okay, well,
folks-
hey, Adam, you're signed up to the marketing committee now too. And Tiffany, you too. Look how good you guys are. See? Brilliant.
Okay, folks, I just
concur.
want
I'm
to,
going to have Adam do my own commercials from now on.
There you go. All right, so go ahead, Patty.
I was just going to say, so everyone can see the results here. This is the outcome of the folks. These are members who voted. So everyone who's on here that's a member has voted. So you can see the responses. And again, the reason for this is just to help us as staff members to direct the future of this community. And I think of all of the questions here, maybe the conversation piece for added depth would be the question number 3 to help us get a better handle on these responses. So if we could maybe just take a few moments, Tiffany, if you want to guide the conversation about those 3 areas that were selected.
Yes, on number 3, operations, issues specific to FirstGen owners, and then technology.
Yeah.
I think those are all great things to focus on. Does anyone want to specifically say maybe, what in technology or what in operations that if you select anyone speak up why you selected what you selected and maybe expand a tinge on what you're hoping to dig deeper into.
I selected operations, and where I was coming from with that was staff training and such, and operations in that respect. As a first generation owner, I haven't had somebody, just like all of you, haven't had somebody necessarily mentoring us as we're coming up in ownership.
Mhm.
So I think that would benefit our firm, because I am just a horrible trainer to start with. So
Amen here as well. Training, operations, HR. We wasted so much time. We bought the funeral home. There was 2 of us that worked here, and instead of writing down and creating an amazing operations manual, we had it all up here. And now you have 20-something employees, and you're like, well, no, here's the Thompson way of doing things, but it's not written down. It's in your head, which means you have to train it, and that's now we're busy. I don't have time to train. And so it's just a really kind of a downward spiral. So I would agree, helping with HR and operations, and having the technology. I'd like to talk to similar ownership about like FDMS or SRS, or how you're integrating that, especially if you're involved with Precoa. I'd like to talk to you about that more. So those would be kind of directions I would like to see us involve in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. Thank you for responding. And what we are going to do is send a similar poll to the folks that have not joined us on this call, because we really want to gather as much information, not only the details and maybe going a little bit deeper into some of these areas that you've identified in terms of technology and operations and HR, but again, talking about the frequency in which we're offering and delivering opportunities to connect. So thank you again for giving us that feedback, and we'll kind of go from there. And again, would like to continue developing this conversation when we are in San Antonio for the annual meeting and having this discussion for this community to try to add a little bit more depth to what you're looking for. So in terms of on behalf of the staff, we appreciate the feedback and know that if you have ideas in between or something comes up into your mind, let us know, because it's an ongoing list, and we're trying to evolve this community into what you'd like it to be. So thank you for taking that. And Tiffany, I'll turn it back to you and we can wrap this up.
Yep. Just a real quick wrap up because we're at 2:01. I just want to say thank you to all for taking time out of your day to be on this call and to offer your insights. And it's great to meet some new faces and to reconnect with some old faces. I want to thank Matt at Full Circle Aftercare for helping us create this opportunity and to connect and share. It's been great to get to know you, Matt, over a couple discussions between yourself, myself, and Patty. I definitely want to thank Patty from Selected for her work. She does a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and so hats off to her. But yeah, just thank you for your insights. I think I didn't make that call in October, and obviously I moderated this one, and so I really do look forward to being a part of the next ones that come up, because I do think that we all have something that is just an unspoken connection by being first gens, and can really offer a great insight to each other. And so look forward to seeing any of you that will be in San Antonio, and always feel free to reach out to Patty or anyone else in Selected, or these members, or myself. But thanks for being here today, and I hope the rest of your day and the rest of your week goes well and is not too crazy in funeral service.
Thanks again, Tiffany. And just another quick reminder, don't forget, we do have a first generation landing page on the Selected website, and there's a wealth of information there. There's also a roster if you're ever looking to connect with other people that maybe you don't know that aren't on this call. It's a quick, easy way to identify other Selected members that are first generation owners. And then we also do quarterly spotlights of Selected members that are first generation. So there's some kind of interesting stories in there to read about your fellow members with a little more detail and background story, which I know is always very popular with our members. We like to know about one another. So thank you again. And this will be recorded, and we'll be sending it out along with the notes, the meeting notes, which Daniel Hugg has quietly been scribing for us. So that'll be coming, and we will share that resource that Sean referenced, the McKee presentation that was done a few years ago at the annual meeting. So we'll send you that link as well. All right.
All right. Awesome.
Until
Thanks,
we meet
everyone.
again.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Good to see everyone.
Take care.
Patty.